All right, folks, welcome back to the final edition of the summer series, and this is a story that you do not want to miss. We are talking to an investor that made $200,000 over 4 years by not doing much. So we talk about the amazing penny drop moment for this investor. But what else, Ben?
Well, it's a great story, Bryce, because it also has a great lived experience finding money for time with family, times with friends, times with loved ones. It's a great story about reinforcing rational behavior, but also taking action and delivering. And 200,000 over 4 years, we're not doing much. I reckon that's delivering.
I reckon that's delivery too, folks. Let's rip into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance, and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast, which is the final in our summer series, Ben. Welcome back to you on this Australia Day.
Yes, for those people who recognise the 26th as Australia Day, happy Australia Day for those people out there. And obviously for everyone, we're very blessed to be in this fine country. Mm-hmm. So happy Australia Day to all of those folks. Hey, sad that it's coming to an end.
Yeah, I know. It's a good one to finish with, though, I reckon. We've had an incredible chat with our TPC listener today.
Yeah, look, it's a great story because for me, it's about getting the balance right, Bryce. I mean, this one is about, I wish I grew up in Steph's parents' household because I think I got taught some pretty good lessons. So, it comes from some good foundations. We've had some, if I look back on the whole summer series, I've been, sort of thinking about those people less fortunate, those people, single incomes, empowering women. This one's a good story about just basically adding to the momentum that that the parents have taught her. So Steph's being taught how to catch fish so she can feed her family, and I think that's a really nice way to finish it because really I see a lot of people in Australia with this type of opportunity, and I can't wait to share Steph's story with everyone.
Well set up, Ben. Let's cut to the interview you and I had recently with Steph. All right, Ben, we've got another very special episode of the summer series. We are chatting with TBC listener Stephanie. Welcome to the Property Couch, Steph.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. We're looking forward to diving into your story. Lots to unpack and your journey on becoming a property investor. But before we get there, we're going to start at the top. We're going to take it back to the very beginning when you were having conversations over the dinner table when you were growing up. Was money something that was talked about in your household?
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that I've been reflecting on preparing for today. And to be honest, we didn't have a lot of conversation across the dinner table when it comes to money. I think particularly for my dad, money and politics were sort of the two things that you probably don't talk about, particularly around his assets and my parents' salaries and all that sort of stuff. It was just a little bit taboo. But there was certainly lessons being learnt and observations being made growing up that I sort of haven't actually really stopped and considered until preparing for today. So conversations, not so much, observations and lessons, and from my parents, definitely.
What were they? What were the observations? What were the lessons?
Yeah, so when we talk about observations, reflecting on my childhood, it's been quite cathartic actually preparing for today. So it's been nice. And I really admire the way that my parents went about managing the household when it comes to our finances. So they still are relatively frugal, but they really splash out on experiences and the things that really matter in life. So day to day, I can definitely remember my dad in particular finding ways to make shortcuts and to give us kids experiences without necessarily spending a whole heap of money. So things like when my mum's a nurse, so when she was on shift, my dad was looking after my brother and I, and we do little things like, so we lived out in the Dandenong Ranges growing up here in Melbourne. And something to do, he'd drive us up to Waverley Park, which there at the time was only 20 minutes or so away. But of course we wouldn't go to the full football game. We'd go at 3/4 time when you could get in for free, and it meant that we could run on the grass afterwards and kick the footy around, and we loved it. And for him it was something for us to do that didn't cost a cent other than the petrol to get us there, and maybe a meat pie if we were lucky. So just little anecdotal stories like that stick in my mind growing up. I remember my dad being given 2 $50 notes once a week from my mum. That was his pocket money, so they called it, and that was what his discretionary spend that he would just spend on lunches, pies for lunch. We obviously ate a lot of pies growing up. Ice creams after school, all of those sorts of things. So little things like that really stick in my mind around how my parents gave us experiences and managed their money day to day without, spending a whole heap of cash.
You're not going to spoil the story by saying you're a Pies supporter, are you?
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
We never played out at Waverley too much, mate. It was a bit too far for us to go. It's always the G or back at Vic Park. So anyway, Enough about me. Let's talk about you. Hey, so would you describe it as a middle-class upbringing? What was sort of, like, as you were saying, experiences meant a lot, but obviously cost-effective type experiences.
Yep.
So did you have to sacrifice, or did you notice that you weren't keeping up with the Joneses in the suburbs? Or tell us a little bit about, the observations you were having, when you're in your adolescent years.
Yeah, so I'd say definitely middle class. Mum was a nurse, Dad worked in procurement, so I guess a white collar type job. I didn't feel that we went without anything. Christmases were always, lots of presents under the tree, probably volume over value, I would say. But as I say, I think a big part of the focus and what mattered most to my parents was giving us experiences. So we had lots of holidays growing up, once a year. And I know that my parents, they prioritized holidays and experiences over the likes of private education or some of the other big ticket items that some families invest in. So we went to a public school for primary school and secondary school. And that was fine. It's, it did its job and certainly set my brother and I up. But they took the sacrifice the reverse side of that is that we were able to go on holidays and we went around Europe and a few times and that sort of thing, which was the choice that they made. And I'm happy they made it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those experiences are priceless when you're certainly young. It opens your eyes up to obviously, how the other half of the world lives and, certainly some experiences there that are amazing. So would you call it a debt retirement strategy from your parents, or were they investors as well? Did they talk about shares? Did they talk about property outside of the family home, or were they just, really conscious of paying off the mortgage?
Yeah, so interestingly, I would say that they have changed over time. So they've always been very much about owning your own property from a very early age. I know that they rented only when they were single, and they basically got married, moved out of home, and bought their own first place. So my dad never rented anywhere, and my mum rented only for a short period while she was studying to become a nurse. Yep. So they've been property owners from a very early age. And I'd say, that's probably planted the seed for my brother and I around our property journey as well. They were definitely share investors. I remember my mum, she was fortunate enough to receive an inheritance when we were kids. And I remember she went and bought shares, and I was just wrapping my head around the fact that she bought part of a company, but I was like, is that the wall of a company, or is it like a chair, or I just couldn't grasp this concept that you own part of a company. It was just bizarre to me. But I definitely remember having, overhearing conversations with my parents around the share market. They only actually bought their first investment property when they would have been in their sort of mid-50s.
Okay.
So I think it was at a point where, my parents were really starting to think about their retirement and how they set themselves up, and also created a legacy for my brother and I. So they've since bought 2 properties here in Melbourne, and that'll be it. And my dad begrudges being an investor because he's too involved. So, yeah.
Steph, what did that look like as you're going through a teenage year? So you're observing frugality, you're observing no conversations around money, but you're getting priorities around experiences. So did you get pocket money? Did you have a part-time job? And what was the flow-on effect of that? Did you become frugal as well? Did you prioritize experiences? Was there any breakout from what you saw? What did that start to look like as you got semi-independence and then obviously moved on to independence through your first job?
Yeah, so I would say conversations, and I've spoken about the observations, but what my parents did, and again, I sort of haven't really realized until I reflected on my childhood, was that they were very much planting the seed and enabling us to learn along the way. So one of my earliest memories, we always had pocket money from the moment that we started in prep. And grade 1, we'd get $1. Grade 2, we'd get $2. Grade 3, we got $3, and so on. And we always had the Dolomite savers account. My brother was always a better saver than I was. He somehow managed to get, this huge amount of money. It was probably only, $60 or something in his account. Even though I was older, I should have had more. I don't know how he did it. And he's still good with money to this day. He works in banking and finance, and he's an accountant by trade. So surprise, surprise. But I remember one of the earliest lessons, my parents have always been big on delayed gratification. And my brother and I, it would have been the mid-90s, and we were desperate for a Nintendo 64. We wanted to play Mario Kart, had these grand ideas of owning this system that every kid in Australia, I think, just about pined for. But of course, my parents weren't going to just go and buy that for us. So we had to save. And I think I looked at the prices in 1995 today, and I think it was $200 back then. So, that was a lot of money. Uh-huh. And so we saved, and we did everything in our power to raise funds to buy this unit, to the point where I remember every week or so we'd rip off all of the cushions of the couch and see if, maybe 5 or 10 cents has dropped out of someone's pocket that we can put into our jar. We'd set up little tables on our driveway to try and sell our junk to our passers-by. And of course, it was just our parents that bought, the 20-cent book or the 10-cent soft toy or whatever. And of course, birthday money and that sort of thing went into this account. And then we finally were we saved up enough to be able to buy it, but quickly realized that the console isn't very much use without a whole heap of games. So that was the next part of the journey. Was
you need the cartridges to go into the game console, otherwise it didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess that lesson around delayed gratification, working hard for what you want and reaping the sense of fulfillment and achievement that comes with that, definitely that lesson continued right throughout up until when we moved out of home and bought our first places. So we had to save up for our first car. We weren't gifted any cars for our 21st or for our 18th birthdays. School trips, we had to go 50-50 with mum and dad. Even when we got our first jobs, we both had to pay board until we moved out. And then that actually, as a surprise, came back to us to help us to buy all of the things you need when you move out of home. So,
very nice.
I think those, giving us the opportunity to learn for ourselves and giving us the scaffold to help learn and build those skills is something that I'm really grateful for from my parents.
Have you thought much about the fact that, your dad is a procurement manager? So for those people who don't know what that, in the old days, that was like a purchasing officer. And so their job was to try and make the money stretch as far as possible and negotiate with the suppliers. And so it sounds like he brought that back into the home. and some of the craft that he's learnt there is rubbed off on you in terms of, again, as a procurement manager, you're trying to get things at the best price for the business that you operate for or the government department that you're working for. So it's quite interesting that sounds like he's passed on that trait to you and that delayed gratification story.
Yeah.
Have you had any thoughts about that?
He definitely has passed that on. He's always, and particularly with my super, that would be the thing that he has been, I'd say, go as far as to say dogmatic about with me. Yep. Make sure it's all combined. There's all of these accounts floating around from when I was working retail and my first job in this company. And he, I think every year he says, have you got one super account? Yes. Is it an industry fund?
Got to reduce those fees. Those
fees. Talking about if you can do it, make some additional contributions, and I think he's seen the fruits of that over the time. So he's very dogmatic on that. But I think the other thing for me that Dad in particular really instilled was around borrowing for an appreciating asset as opposed to a depreciating asset. So over the time, the shiny ball, as you guys like to say, things like cars and, you do, and credit cards, they come across the table and you go, maybe I will get a car loan. And Dad, it rings in my ear. He's like, you never borrow money for a depreciating asset. And I think he said that about 10,000 times. And so that's definitely in my belief system today. It kills my husband because he argues the opposite. He says, yeah, but there's this Land Cruiser and this is going to be rare and it's a V8 and it's going to appreciate in time. And I just I can't get my mind around, investing for cars at the moment. It's kind of more about property and shares for me.
So what happened with the? So you get your first job. What was the budgeting system that you used? As you're starting to develop independence with these very strong sort of parental guidelines in the back of your mind, did you have a burn to accumulate money? Were you all about, okay, well, I just got to make ends meet and seed into experiences? Where were you on that spectrum, and what was the spark around money for you?
Yeah, so it's funny because I would say that it's changed slightly over the time. So first job, while I was working throughout university, and I got my first job at 14 and 9 months. I walked around Chadstone with my CVs all printed out, stapled together, like desperate to get a job. I landed a job at the Reject Shop of all places, which was great. And look, there was no, I saved a bit of money here and there, but really, bought what I wanted because let's face it, I was young enough to think I'll just worry about that later. And then when I got to university that I started to think, well, actually, maybe I do want to start saving my money to enable me to achieve something bigger, be that buy a car or a trip. So the first big purchase was definitely my first car, my $3,000 1989 Mazda Estina that needed the water filled up after every single drive. I had to carry water everywhere with me, which taught me a little bit about how to service the car. Yep. Yeah, it's shocking. But I loved it. It was mine, and it was the biggest thing I'd ever owned. And then the next thing was a trip. So my now husband and I went on a trip to Canada, and we saved up our money, and we were able to stay there for about 3 months before we got out, finished our education and got out into the big world. So really saving really hard to enable those things. But I think throughout those later years, as I was starting to get into jobs where I, maybe had a little bit more income than I had in the early days at the Reject Shop, very much had a mentality. And every time I wanted to buy something, I'd ask myself, can I live without that? And 9 times out of 10, it was yes. Can I live without that new pair of shoes? Oh, yes, I can. Can I live without that handbag? Can I live without that extra drink on a Saturday night out? Yes, I probably can. So And that's really what helped me I saved really, really, really hard for a couple of years. And that was my deposit for a house, because I was sort of thinking, look, I don't want to live at home until I'm 30. I'm kind of ready to start exploring the world, and how great would it be if I could actually buy my first place to move out into. So that was very much the aim. And yeah, we got there, which was great.
Yeah, well, we got there. It's great. What did that look like? What did the first house look like? What were the emotions going through your mind as you embarked onto the property ladder? All that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I qualified or finished university at about 21, and my husband was still studying to become a paramedic at the time. So he got through that and quickly realised that he didn't want to become a paramedic. So then he restarted his apprenticeship as an electrician, at a mature age, I guess you would say, at about 24. So he was on very minimal wage as a first-year apprentice, and I was on a pretty average salary for the time as well, just fresh out of university. So there wasn't a lot of money floating around. So that kind of really set the parameter for the house that we were able to buy. I'd managed to scrape together, I think I saved about 35,000 throughout university as my deposit. It wasn't quite enough. So I had it was actually a friend of mine, his dad was a mortgage broker, and he really gave us a lot of, with, decades and decades of experience, gave us a lot of advice beyond just the mortgage, but also how we could make this work. And I remember sitting around the dinner table with him and my mum and my dad, and we sort of said, all right, how are we going to make this work? And he was the one that came up with some of the ideas around, well, actually, if you loan some money from your parents and you pay that back to them as your first priority, and if your parents go guarantor for you so that you can avoid your mortgage insurance, then these are, and also, hey, when you move out, maybe you could get someone in to board with you, and that's going to help to give a little bit more cash that you can pay back to your parents, get rid of that loan, and then while your other loan is on interest only as well. So having that advice to help us to achieve what we ultimately wanted to do, which was to buy a place, was great.
Make the invisible visible. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
You can't be what you can't see. So just a quick one on your husband. When did you meet, and how did that story land in terms of spending behaviour? And were you aligned? Were you misaligned? How did all that play out?
Yeah. So Al's always been the spender, and I'm always the saver. And I think you need yin and yang in every relationship across many different facets. He's the one that pushes us, and I'm the one that probably goes, I don't think we need that. And
we can turn up to the footy at 3/4 time. We don't need the whole game.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. But we, if we rewind, we met back in year 7 would have been the year 2001. And we were in year 7 together. And I remember, looking at him across the classroom thinking, what a dork. And he probably thought the same of me. But yeah, we went to school together. And then we, come year 10, that school trip that I mentioned that we went 50-50, we went to Europe. We both went on that trip, and I think he asked if I wanted to go out. And I said, well, yeah, I do. So the rest is history, really. We've been together since we were about 16. And I think for us, very similar values from family perspective around what's important in life. And some people grow apart, I guess, as they get older. And I think we've definitely grown together and grown up, which has been really
beautiful story.
Very special.
And in terms of the property that you bought, was Al buying that first apartment with you, or was that just yours alone?
It was just mine alone at the time. So as I mentioned, he because he'd sort of made this, he had to move out of home very early, actually. So his parents decided to sell the family home and move up to country Victoria, up near Bendigo. So he had to move out of home at the age of about 18, together with his I think he was 17-year-old brother, and his brother-in-law. So he actually, while studying, so not a lot of extra cash around. So he often came over to my parents' place for dinner, I think about 6 nights a week. My parents loved, keeping his belly full throughout that period. But yeah, so I did the first place, but he was absolutely right there with me. And for all intents and purposes, we were in it together. It's just that I was in the position to, to put the cash in, but he was right there with me.
And there's a renovation story to that first property, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. You should have seen it. It was 1980s glamour, that's for sure, but really in a real state of disrepair, to be honest. So we're talking brown shag pile carpets. The bathroom had tiles literally sticky taped on. It was very sad, but just a bit of a renovation tragic. So it was great. I loved that it needed some TLC. We could put our stamp on it. We painted it probably 3 or 4 times because, you quickly realise that a brown room and a purple room and a blue room actually isn't great. But we did all of that ourselves, and some of those renovations were super cheap. I think we did our first bathroom. We learned a lot about the order and sequencing in which you renovate. I think we did a number of things the wrong way around. Tyler's just shaking our head saying, the plumber hasn't been here yet. What are you doing? But it was a great journey for us because we were able to cut our teeth from a renovation perspective and learn things and create a place that was ours, and that ultimately gave us that satisfaction, but also helped us when it came time to sell, to move into our next place.
Did it create a desire around real estate? Because you, was it a positive experience? For every dollar you spent, there was some value added, or was it just an experimentation time where you were learning the craft and making your house more cozy?
Look, it depends who you ask. If you asked Al, my husband, he'd say it was annoying because I'd be asking him every weekend, can you? Because he was, at the time, he'd sort of, as I said, was starting his electrical apprenticeship. So, I think every single light in the place was changed, every light switch, air cons put in, all sorts of things, really making the most of his trade, which was great. But I loved it. I love, getting onto Pinterest, having a look at how, the way things might be designed, or hacks that you can do to make things look and feel better without necessarily spending a whole heap. So, our kitchen probably stood out as one of the main areas where we spent really, less than a couple of grand, and it looked like a new kitchen just by painting the cupboards, new bench top, did our own tiling, and it looked great on a shoestring budget.
So, Steph, can you just take us through the numbers, if that's okay? Like, what did you pay for the property?
So we paid $420 back in 2012.
2012, okay. And in terms of, so you're now getting serious, you put the money in, you've renovated it, and you sell because you were told to sell, or you got advice to sell, or did you try and crunch the numbers where it was, can we keep that, use the equity out of that property to potentially go again?
Yeah, it's funny. Listening to you guys, I think one of the biggest regrets, Ben, that you talk to is you sold your first place, and hello, I'm right here with you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm high-fiving you now through the camera.
There was a virtual high five there, folks. They would see that.
Yep.
Yeah,
welcome to the club.
Yeah, I'm in there with you. No, it was the advice at the time, and to be honest, could we have purchased the house that we're in now without having done that? Possibly not. We may have had to make a sacrifice, and there's 2 schools of thought. I would love to have held on to that property. It was a 2-bed, 2-bath, double lock-up garage, one of 8 in Vermont, Victoria, which is a great, growth suburb, stable suburb here. So would I have loved to have owned that? Yes, absolutely. But am I happy in the house I'm in now? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so what did the sale price be? What was the?
So
what
we
did you
sold
charge?
it for 685
Okay.
in 2016. So
Okay, so 4
about
years,
4 years
685. And roughly how much do you think you put into it from the Renault point of view?
oh, not much.
Nine
much.
tenths of
20?
not much.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. So you've harvested that equity, you go and buy the second property, and you stumble across this thing called the Property Couch, where you're starting to then sort of talk about what life looks like and getting serious about starting a family and that type of stuff. So what's the conversation between you and Al at this point in terms of, is he sort of saying, I'm off the tools, don't ask me to do anything anymore? Or, did we renovate the second property? So take us through that period from sort of 2016 to say 2019 through to where we are.
Yeah, no, the tools definitely did not get a break, that's for sure. If anything, and you know what? It gives him an excuse to go down to Bunnings and stand in that bloody tool aisle for every weekend he goes down and comes home with something new. So I only have myself to blame. But so the house that we bought again was great bones, great area, great outlook. So we look out onto, there's a school behind us that has a farm program. So we actually back onto the farm. So we've got sheep on our back fence, which is
awesome.
Something that we love. So we absolutely love and have the best neighbours to boot. So we love where we live, but the house was just like an homage to pink, basically. So pink carpets, pink walls, pink curtains, really ornate lights. It was very boxed in, lots of walls, a big copper range hood in the kitchen, and it was just very, very, very original. The last renovation it had was the 90s, and as we realized when we demoed, we did a big renovation in 2018 before we had kids. And we realized that it wasn't, this wasn't the first reno this house had. As we peeled back the layers, there was just like layers of, all of these brown and orange wallpapers and all sorts of, these crazy tiles. And it was an interesting process. But I think what we realized, one of the lessons from our first place was we did, I would say, a final cosmetic renovation before we sold the unit. So new carpets, painted everything, finished off one of the bathrooms. And we sort of turned to each other and said, this is great. Why did we wait to do this? We've just done it for someone else to enjoy. So moving into our next place, we said, no, we're going to renovate this thing so that we can enjoy it. And also there's going to be some equity benefit that comes from that. So we got onto that after about a year. That was one of the other lessons from my parents, particularly my dad, was just live in a place for a year in every season, so that you sort of know what the light plays throughout the seasons, what the heating and cooling's like, and then you're going to make a more informed decision around where you spend your money. So we did that. And,
very good advice.
And brought just a couple of chippies in basically, and they renovated. We did all new floors, new kitchen. We've since done 2 of the bathrooms, painting, lights, new electrical everywhere, which Al absolutely loved.
I'm assuming a smart home. All of the is it a Clipsal home where everything's sort of automated?
No, we're not that. We're not that tragic.
Okay.
As much as I'd probably like to, I think I value my marriage. So. Yeah.
So you've had some input here too, because you read Barefoot Investor, you spoke with My Budget with credit card and spending to get in check. You've started listening to the Property Couch. So you're a seeker of knowledge and you're a seeker of help. Where did, it sounds like Dad's been a real big mentor for you too, which is wonderful. But where was the seed planted to keep looking outside of you and bringing in all this extra information that you could bring into your toolkit?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I think particularly through my work, so I work in marketing, and we're always encouraged within the workplace to develop. So everyone has a development plan. And I think that sort of mentality of not standing still carries across from work into my personal life as well. And And I have no idea where this sad obsession with property has come from, but I just love it. And I love the creative side of things. And I love what it can give you from a financial freedom perspective as well. I think it's, there's both sides of the coin that are both of equal interest for me. So, shows like The Block, and there's some great shows on some of the binge Netflix at the moment as well. And obviously, Bryce, I know that you're in that game. So I'm big into all of that. And I think that's definitely just watching those shows over the years, and my parents have always watched them. That's probably where the seeds come from. But also it's been solidified through seeing what the impact it can have, or it has had for us. So I think that penny drop moment when we sold our first place, 4 years, and I've made like more than 200 grand by not doing much, just kind of sitting on an asset. That's pretty cool. So seeing it and live, and I've seen my parents benefit in similar ways as well over the years. So really, I think that's where it's come from. And now it's just a bit of a sad obsession.
Now, it got more serious, though, obviously, when you decided to, get a formal plan as part of the journey that you're going on. So what were some of the big takeaways? So you go and speak to one of our team, and you've got yourself a property portfolio plan. From a money management point of view, what did you learn? And then ultimately, tell us a bit of an overview about what you've planned to become.
Yeah, so to be honest, there weren't any big aha moments in chatting to the property advisor.
Yep.
We already had a view that there was equity in our property that we need to be putting to work. And I'd probably done, I'd sort of started to create some of my own spreadsheets that would be only a tenth of as powerful as the work that you guys do, but starting to crunch the numbers around all, forward projections, super projections, looking at when some of the big costs in our life, so things like marriages of kids and all of that sort of, and maternity leave, dips in income and that sort of thing. But the thing that I was lacking was the confidence that my numbers were robust. So I'm not an accountant by trade. I know my way around a spreadsheet and around my numbers, but the thing that we lacked was the confidence to take action. So we knew we could do it. We kind of, and the other thing for us was knowing where and what asset to buy. So if we hadn't have sought professional advice, I guarantee you we would have bought something in our area, because that's, it's comfortable. Hey, it's been okay for us. So that's what would have happened. And would we have got a good result? It would have been okay. Would have done, but the opportunity cost for us is missing out on what could have been as well. So it was just a tip off that a friend gave us around the property couch. As you said, I'd, definitely poured over the Barefoot Investor. I'd set up all of our accounts, all of that sort of stuff. The concept of a weekly float, that was great. But listening to you guys, the biggest takeaway for me was the simplicity. And I think we were overcomplicating it, having about 4 or 5 different accounts where you're putting money in. And it was, I like things to run on autopilot, and that's listening to you guys, that's what I've been able to do. So setting up, we have our offset, and we've always had an offset, paying that into our week. We pay ourselves on a Friday, well, not a Thursday or a Friday, because that's just how it works.
Yep.
And then everything else is on autopilot out of our offset. So we don't, I know I should be using the credit card, but anyway, that's.
No, only for bills if you want to. It's an optional thing if you want to use it. Yep. Yeah. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. But if it's, and I do this at work as well, I use systems to help me to free up my mental availability so I can do other things like spend time with my kids and be more present rather than having to keep things in my brain. So everything's on autopilot, which is, it's awesome. So I've forgotten the original question.
No, that's right.
I'm probably skating around.
I can answer it for you. You got validation. You've answered all the pieces, and you scratched the itch because you needed validation in terms of that confidence piece around the numbers.
Yes. Yeah.
like what you said, and you also simplified your affairs. You simplified your banking, you simplified all of those things by taking the principles of Money Smarts and then obviously implementing those. So that's all good. But then did you take action? Yeah, what happened after we got the plan done? Did we actually buy an investment property?
We did, yeah. So as I said, the confidence is what we lacked. So we got the plan. My husband is more risk adverse than I am, so I'd be quite happy to, you never really. I always ask myself, when you go into big decisions like this, what's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst is, one of us loses our jobs or whatever. You sell the asset. No one's going to die. We're going to be okay.
Yeah. Appreciating asset. Let's remember appreciating assets. So that helps.
Exactly. So whereas Al, he's a little bit more. He needs to see it to believe it. So that was the other parts of the process that really helped. And I think the thing that gave us the most comfort, and particularly for Al, was the level of fat and buffer that was baked into all of the numbers. So be that around the interest rate assumptions over the forward projections, or be that around the occupancy rates or the maintenance costs that we baked into all of our numbers. I think he, at every time we came up to those assumptions, he went, oh gosh, that's really conservative, but that's good because it means that we're going to be okay. We're going to be comfortable. The thing that he was most nervous about was that we'd be sacrificing our lifestyle and that we wouldn't be able to do the things that we want and create those experiences that we want to create with our kids. And that's one of the most important things for us, is that, yes, we're planning for the future, but we've had enough life experience now and things that have happened in our life to tell us that you need to live for today while planning for tomorrow. And we really try to balance that. We're not scrimping and scraping and foregoing things for the sake of living a wonderful life in 40 years' time. So we did the plan, and we had the confidence, and we brought on board a buyer's agent from Empower Wealth to come and help us as well. And that was, to be honest, that was some of the best money that we've ever spent. So, and it was I think the thing that we loved was it was a very clear brief in terms of the growth and the yield and what that suburban property needed to do in context of our plan. And then it was a very quick process. And I have to say, I've been very emotionally invested in the houses that we've bought for ourselves. And this one, I know you guys talk about, it's like buying a loaf of bread. I can
maybe a bit more than a loaf of bread, but yes, we can.
Maybe 2 loaves. But I can empathize with that because I really didn't feel an emotional connection to this place at all. I think so Krista, who helped us, she found us 2 properties for us to have a look at. We didn't even look at one of them. We went to one of them, fell in the door at the inspection. It's on the other side of the city, which is also a blessing. We fell in the door at the inspection. The estate agent was like, like, you need to get out. You've got 1 minute. We kind of raced around and went, this looks pretty good. The numbers stack up. It's very durable and reliable in a quiet street. 10 Ks from the city. Okay. And then that Saturday we bought it, and we didn't even go to the auction, which again is very out of character for us. Usually I love all of that, but it's been very much at arm's length, I would say. I think I can count on one hand the number of minutes I've been in the property. And as I say, it's been, the best thing about it is that it's not close to us, because I know that I'd be doing drive-bys, and I don't need doing that. And I don't need my husband to be going over and doing maintenance either. So we have a great property manager that manages all of that for us, and it's very much out of sight, out of mind, to be honest. So long as our rent comes in, we're happy.
So, Steph, what were some of the big rocks in the jar that you did plan for? You've hinted at experiences growing up. You've hinted that you want to prioritise the expenses. So what sort of things did you think about as you're going through the planning process to make sure that you factored in, and to use your words, make sure that you didn't sort of scrimp and save for a life in 40 years' time? for the people listening to this, what sort of thought process and things were you thinking about as you tried to look at, towards the horizon with the planning?
Yeah, so we've got 2 kids. We've got Matilda, who's 4, and our little one, Charlie, who's 4 months old. And he wasn't part of he wasn't in as well when we did our plan. But absolutely creating some of those experiences that Al and I both had the luxury of having growing up. So holidays is a big one. So working into the plan, an annual holiday, be that within the country or outside the country. And Ben, you'll be happy to know we're going to Hamilton Island next year. So there you go. But saving or creating experiences that ultimately help to build the life that we want. So holidays is big. We also would love to do what my parents did for us, which is around contributions to weddings, and if they choose to go down that path, but also with any tertiary education. So if we're able to contribute or cover the costs of that would be wonderful. And also, in retirement, we absolutely want to, continue traveling, and I think in the plan we've got a holiday home. We'll see how that goes, but it's in the plan for 2025 as well. So that's part of our dream as well, is to have somewhere where we can base ourselves later in life and when we retire, and then have somewhere smaller in the city where we can come and spend time with family. So sort of creating that lifestyle by design, as you like to say, that's in the plan.
Well, you've been in the property game now for as we get into this summer, it's about a decade. And how did you cope with the fact that interest rates during your journey early, that you'd never had to experience an interest rate rise? How have you processed and dealt with interest rate rises for the first time, and how have you planned for that? And importantly, how's it worked in your psyche?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that the bank can just stop sending letters advising that interest rates are going up. Just save the paper, because I'm sick of getting them. But no, to be honest, we've built in buffers. So from a financial perspective, we don't necessarily feel a huge pinch coming in. I can definitely see that we're paying more, and that gives me the irrits. But that's the game you play, right? So I think the buffer has definitely helped, but also interest rates and also housing prices in fluctuation. If you asked me this question, say 3 years ago, I remember at the start of COVID, I had a bit of a freak out going, oh my God, our house is going to drop in value. And what does that mean for our equity and what we can do and all this sort of stuff. But now you just take a long-term view. So, we're talking 20, 30 years. These assets will be significantly higher in value than they are today. Tomorrow, have we lost money on the place that we bought about a year ago? Yeah, probably. Yeah, it would be worth less than what we paid for it. Yeah, so I guess that sucks. But if I look at the 20, 30-year horizon, it's going to be fine. And we have no plans of selling anytime soon. That's not the plan. So I guess all of the emotion taken out of it, it is what it is. We've got the buffers, and just take a long-term view, and it's fine.
Well, a related question then, a linked question then is this a conversation you have with your friends? Are they conversations that you can have within your peer group, or are they sort of independent conversations that you only keep within your own household?
No, we don't. Within my friendship group, we don't talk a lot about money, to be honest. They're definitely interested in the fact that we've been fortunate enough to be able to buy, particularly an investment property. And I think there's learnings that they're curious to understand how we made it work. But we certainly don't, we don't sit around the barbecue talking about money or finance or property very much, because no one really cares that much as much as I do. So yeah.
Nice.
But I think there's an element of, and it's just a typically Australian things around this tall poppy syndrome as well. And I intentionally actually don't really tell many people about what we're doing and what we've been able to achieve, because I know that for some they're not in the position to be able to do that, or they don't have the confidence or a clear pathway to be able to do that. And there's absolutely help out there if you're in that space to help you navigate through that. But yeah, I probably have an element of tall poppy and not wanting to be seen to be showing off, not showing off, but yeah, you know what I mean. I think, first and foremost, Al and I that's just kind of how we're wired, to be honest. I think, we're naturally pretty calm, pragmatic people. We don't really get worked up and phased about things. Yeah. Possibly not. Yeah, and I think the big thing for me is, and you only have to go choose any property. Go to realestate.com, have a look at past sales history. You'll see when it probably, the sales from 1976, it sold for $23,000. Any house that sold, any history that you see like that tells you that this is the way that the game works. That house will not be worth $26,000 30 years later. It's actually implausible. So I think the facts are the things, and history is the thing that gives me the confidence that we're going to be okay. So long as we stick it out. And if we were in a position where we needed to sell tomorrow, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But at this point in time, we're not in that position at all. So yeah.
Steph, you're intelligent, articulate. You've got a lot of wisdom. You're 34, so there's a lot of
Early.
Oh, good on you, mate. Well done.
Early.
Nice. Did you get your brownie point there? But the point of the story is that there's a lot of wisdom that's coming from you, and there's not a lot of just to have what Ben described around that calm approach and that sort of horizon approach that you've got is to be admired, first of all. And I'd love for people who are listening to this to really learn some of those wisdom pieces that you're dropping. But whenever you go on a journey like this, there's two parts. You have the journey of achievement, which is to get a passive income. We haven't talked to that, so I wonder if you could talk to what your passive income in your retirement is. But you've got the journey of achievement, then you've got the journey of fulfillment, right? Which is the stuff that happens internally. So can you talk to those two things? When you actually get to the point where you do have that passive income, what does that look like? And what's it going to mean for you and for Al and for the kids? What's that internal fulfillment that you think you'll achieve from that?
Yeah, gosh, what a deep question.
Huh?
It is very cathartic, this process. I'm serious. It's great. No, the sense of fulfillment that we're after is time. I think the most finite resource that any of us have is time. And for me, that's time with friends and family. That is above everything else. Family is first and friends are very, very close second for us. So for us, if that's time For Al's fortunate enough now, he's had more careers than I've had hot breakfasts. But he's now a firefighter, so he has the luxury of time working a 4-day on, 4-day off roster, and that's just been transformative, to be honest, for us. And for me, when I'm on maternity leave at the moment, but having a Wednesday carved out where that is our family day. So 1 day a week is time for us to focus on our kids and focus on experiences that we want to create together. So, that doesn't have to be anything fancy. That could be literally going down to the local park on the scooter with the kids and grabbing an ice cream afterwards. Like, that is quality, and all the way up to using their great annual leave that we both have to go on holidays and that sort of thing. So the passive income for us, that's the kids and enjoying the journey as well. It's not just about the destination for us. And I think, you guys use the analogy of the freeway versus the scenic route, and we're definitely more the scenic route. We could probably go really hard and try and get to the destination faster. But I think, as I alluded to before, there's, everyone has reminders in life with people passing early and that sort of thing. That life is short and life is to be lived. And so that's why we choose to take the scenic route. And we could absolutely be more frugal and probably get to our destination faster. But why not? Why do that when you can't smell the roses? Yeah, so I think there's probably two main ones. The first is, and you say it every week, is knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. And the acting part for me is key. I particularly, not necessarily buying these homes, but from an investment perspective, poured over numbers myself and just had no, just didn't really have the confidence to take it on. And property investing investing in general seemed like something, a pipe dream or something that only people that have lots of money do, or that you do when you're a bit older, basically. So just find someone to help you and take action and just do it. And you've got to jump in, and it might feel a little bit uncomfortable. It might, butterflies might be flying around your stomach. You might think, oh God, have I done the right thing? But 9 times out of 10, if you're in the property game and you're buying a bit of dirt in a good place, you're going to be okay. So just get on with it and get it done. And the other thing is, kind of back to that point around smelling the roses, don't get distracted by, I guess, the shiny toys or the things, or getting somewhere, the destination. You've got to enjoy the path, because you never know what tomorrow brings. And I just encourage everyone to take every day as a blessing. Wow.
I reckon that's a pretty good spot to leave it, Ben. I think there was some wonderful messages and some timeless principles and some wisdom and maturity that I think should be a takeaway for everyone who's been listening to this. So, Steph, it's always a joy and a pleasure, Summer Series, for you to put your hand up and come on and be so open and transparent. I think is transformative for people who listen, who aren't as advanced as you are, but also hopefully plant a spark and a seed in people to go, I think I can relate to parts of Steph's story, and I reckon that can provide me with a bit of inspiration to have the knowledge, but act on it as well. So, on behalf of everyone here at the Property Couch, thank you for joining us on the Summer Series.
Pleasure. It's been great to be here, and also thank you to you guys for serving up such fantastic content for us to consume. I love my Thursdays when your podcasts come out, but also honestly, you're making a difference. So thank you to you guys.
Wow. Articulate, Ben. Oh, that was like just silk, just having that conversation, just flowed with lots of, intelligent, articulate thoughts. I really love that conversation with Steph. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. She's super organized. She's the saver. Al's the spender. Gives, I guess, insights for a lot of relationships who might be listening to this going, oh, okay, we got one of each in our family too. So you can definitely work through that. Hey, Ben, my biggest takeaway from all of that was there was renoing on a shoestring. There was planning. They know what, but it was just the philosophical concept of prioritizing experiences over all else. And making sure that they put that into the plan to say, well, we've only got these kids for a little while. We want to make sure that we plant firmly around friends and family and experiences and all of the fruit of life, rather than just accumulation. And I really like that. I really like that as a kind of a full stop to the messaging that we've been trying to do across the summer series to go, okay, money transformations and building wealth and building portfolios. At the end of the day, it's to do stuff with the people that you love, because life's about people and doing stuff with people and having fun with people. So, mm, mm, yeah, mm, mm, yeah, mm, yeah. Well, because luck equals opportunity meeting preparation. So, yeah, Steph, thank you from the bottom of our hearts here, from everyone at the Property Couch for coming on, finishing our summer series so strong, being transparent. And Ben, just a quick shout out to AJ, Mandy, Jessica, Jack, Matt and Olivia, David, Dale, Marianne, and of course Steph, just for coming on and doing let's lean on the fact that, you know, when we started the conversations, they said, I'm feeling a bit nervous. We said, leave it with us. We'll guide you through it. So they pushed through their nerves. They showed incredible transparency to some of the parts of their backstory, which you know, a lot of people don't like talking about. If people were to listen to that summer series and just go, I picked something out of AJ's story, and I picked something out of Mandy and Jessica and Jack, and they just keep picking little bits out and they put it into their own and then apply that with a huge emphasis on apply that. Wow, imagine where they're going to be at the end of 2023. So thank you to all of our guests on the summer series. We had a blast, and we hope you had a lot of fun listening to all of them. Ben, action is the important thing here. So we want to remind all of our people that we talked about sequencing. We talked about optimizing that sequencing, which you can do through the planning process. But the core foundation here is making sure you've got clarity on your numbers and you've got a rules-based system to actually move your money in between week to week through your household. So we want to encourage each and every one of you to go, and if you haven't already, go and get a part of our More platform, MOORR. You can download it. The app's now available, and you can do all of that on the go so that you can transform your own story. We are in January. Remember, the gym car parks are the fullest in January, but in February they trail off. So don't be one of those people. Get your inspiration from your New Year's resolutions, but make sure you carry it through for the remaining 11 months of the year, man. I agree. Nice way to round that out, mate. But we've got a big year ahead on the Property Couch, Ben. We are going to do whatever we can to grow the content, grow the amount of guests that we get on, grow the amount of frameworks. We will do a whole bunch of case studies moving forward throughout the year as well. So there is big plans here on the Property Couch, folks. So make sure you stick around, mate. But yes. Summer series ending. Ooh, that's a good question to ask, Ben. Without a tool, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Mm. Oof. Mm. So Ben, how much are these features though? Mm. It's incredible, Ben. What's so good about it, right, is for a lot of people, the North Star being in the future is often difficult to get that to be tangible in the present. What those gauges allow you to do is not only make it tangible, help you make a decision on the money that I'm spending now, how that actually affects my speeds, and also gives you an opportunity to compare over the fence and go, how do I actually stack up for other people that are in similar circumstances to me? So it is an incredible innovation that people can get access to. So not only do they have the core money smarts as the foundation, but they also get to essentially gamify their own life to actually help them make better decisions about future events. Mm. Mm. Super exciting, folks. If you're wanting to manage your money better in 2023, you should absolutely get access to that free platform, moorr.com.au, and check it out, mate. So that's exciting news. On to see your future self in the present. Nice one, mate. Very good way to finish. So, mate, until next week. There you go, folks. It's been a great summer series, normal programming. See you next week. Hey guys, Bryce here again. Just want to catch you before you go and let you know, if you're new to our community, there are a lot of episodes to catch up on, but it's really important that you start from the very beginning at episode number 1. Because episode 1 through to 20 share all of the foundational pillars and frameworks that you need to know to get the best out of listening to this podcast. So I'd recommend that you start there, and the little tip is to maybe start on 1.5 speed. Now, for those of you that are time poor and don't have time to go back from the beginning, don't worry, we've got you covered as well. because we've created a binge guide that goes through all of the details and makes it easy for you to read and get up to speed very, very quickly. So if you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, you will be able to download that binge guide and you will be up to speed in no time. And whilst you're there, I've got a few extra goodies for you, because we have our top 5 frameworks that you'll learn on this podcast, as well as the Make Money Simple Again ebook, which will help you with the foundations of basic money management, so you'll have everything you need to succeed in building your own lifestyle design and getting the best out of this podcast. Now, just a reminder that anything that we cover on this podcast is not considered financial advice. We certainly recommend that you get your unique circumstances looked at by your individual advisor, and everything we talk about is just general in nature. But folks, I want to encourage you again to go to thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, and you can go and get all those goodies and catch up right away.